And of course, we have to deal with the Holy Roman Empire, which remained conservatively Romanesque well into the 13th century. And at the same time, the French Gothic has made profound impact, but much, much later in the Holy Roman Empire than elsewhere. And here we're looking at Cologne Cathedral, where they depict wonderful smelling fragrances or overpowering fragrances if they happen to be in a can marked axe. Now, in terms of the exterior, what we see is a church that is started under the direction of Gerhard of Cologne and would take about 600 years to complete. Now, you're sitting there looking at this going, why does this take 600 years? Well, the reason is they start it in the 14th century, and they lose the plans, which are eventually found in the 19th century, which allow it to be completed. So yes, it sits there for a considerable amount of time, incomplete. And when we go inside, this is where we start to see some differences. We see paint used. Instead of different colored stone, a lot of this is painted. We see a brighter structure even than many of the Gothic cathedrals. The interior is roughly 150 feet tall, so it's incredibly lofty. And we have double lancets used in a triform, which we see along here as we're in the choir. We see these tall, slender, single windows in the clerestory. And the choir fulfills the quest for Gothic height. Of course, they can use a little bit different technology by the 19th century than they have during the Gothic, allowing them to push the height a little bit higher than what we've seen at, for example, Amiens. So we see this sort of mix of ideas here. What makes it interesting here as well is what happens in World War II. During World War II, the city of Cologne is firebombed, basically completely decimated. And this is not its complete decimation, but it gives you a pretty darn good idea. And the cathedral is really the only thing standing at this point. It's the only thing that is obvious in the city. Unfortunately, the Allied bomber pilots would use it as a landmark on their way to other cities. So the Germans actually considered destroying their own cathedral during World War II to prevent the Allied bombers from having this landmark that they could use for navigation.